Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, a new job search resource and how you might use gaming technology to prepare for the battlefields. Plus, lasers on strikers? You heard that right. Learn who will be the first to get them and who scored a $250 million Eurofighter radar contract. With the latest news and analysis from the Pentagon platoon, this is Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. In December 2021, veteran unemployment fell to 3.2%. But according to AARP, underemployment is still holding veterans back. The organization recently launched its digital platform to bring new resources to veterans and military spouses. And it's got everything from a job board to a career course. Daniel Woolfolk has more.
Troy, welcome back to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Veteran unemployment fell to 3.2% in December, which sounds like a good number, but AARP took a survey and kind of parsed down those numbers. What's the situation?
Well, here's what we found. We looked at a survey that was done back in 2020 by Blue Star Families, the annual military family lifestyle survey, and we found that 2/3 of employed active duty spouses, 67%, reported they were underemployed in some way, indicating that their current employment does not match their desires, education, or experience. This is an issue that needs to be brought to light and addressed as quickly as possible.
And how do we get to this point exactly? There's so much job training in the military, and it's a whole different world coming out, and it's always changing. As we've seen with COVID, it changes by the month.
Absolutely. When we look at military spouses, in particular military spouses, when they move from job station to job station, they have to restart. They have to reignite their careers. And then what happens is that, they're looking to get some type of employment. So what you find is that you try to find what was available at the first duty station. At the next duty station, the market, the economy, it may not be as equipped or more fulfilled with jobs based on their experience. And this is where we find spouses just finding the best available job.
And AARP went beyond taking the survey and actually produced some resources for not just military and veterans, but also for military families, for spouses. Tell us about that.
Oh, I'm excited to share with your listeners. We call it the one-stop hub. It's called AARP Veterans and Military Spouses Job Center. It launched back on January 12th, and it features free courses, resume tools, webinars, and more to jumpstart a job search or to help navigate those career transitions. So this would be a great tool, online tool that can be utilized by veterans and military spouses prior to making that move to that new duty station. They can utilize these free resources to really make sure that they don't be a part of the underemployment statistics anymore, that they can really find a job that really matches their veteran experience as well.
And what's the difference between, I've heard a lot about jobs that you can take from place to place. I think the hairdresser is the one that pops in my mind. Sure. Is that still relevant in today's economy?
I believe that it is still relevant, but I think that the real focus is veterans and military spouses, they really want to focus on things that they're passionate about. And normally things that you're passionate about, Daniel, are things that you've had previous experience with, your comfort level is high. So being able to get to this Vets Job Center that we do have, it's fantastic because it's broken down into these free resources. It's broken down into a Veterans Career Advantage. an online skill builder. So if there's a skill that you're lacking, you can build it there. There's a job search toolkit involved as well, a veterans wanted feature. And then also there's a resume advisor as well. But I think the coolest part of the entire job center that I like, and I think it's very good, is that there's a video that shows you how to ace that civilian job interview, because you can have all the skills, but if you don't interview well, that is a skill that needs to be strengthened. And this job center allows you to do that free of charge for military spouses and veterans.
That's good to hear. And one thing off the top of my head is that a lot of things that people in the military don't know is that, especially if you're a non-commissioned officer, you are a master communicator.
And I think that's the key thing. We have to take those skills, for example, like a platoon leader or a sergeant who's leading others, and to be able to take the information from your commissioned officers and take that information, understand it, and then deliver it to your enlisted personnel. That is a key skill that can be transferable throughout, especially in the civilian job marketplace. So I think there are skills that we need to make sure that are highlighted, that veterans and military spouses can use it, so that when they do move to those new locations, they have the skills necessary for that job or that career that they really want.
Troy, can you explain to me what the job center, how that works, how it pulls out the veteran searches?
Absolutely. What happens is it's an online tool that once you go to aarp.org/vets job center, it's an interface that you can actually point and click, and it'll take you to the Veterans Career Advantage, it'll take you to a job search toolkit, it'll take you to a Veterans Wanted feature at jobs.aarp.org, and it provides you that resume advisor as well, as far as a free webinar on the studio's video that talks about how to ace a job interview. So it's online and it's point and click, and it takes you, the interface is very easy to utilize as well.
And what was that URL again?
Yeah, absolutely. It's www.aarp.org/vets job center.
And Troy, you're a Desert Storm veteran. You know that it's difficult to find stuff. So you yourself are a resource, and you're managing this. It's a huge resource. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I will leave you with one thing. I wish I had this Vets Job Center when I was coming out of Desert Storm. It probably would have assisted my career even more and build some additional skills. So thank you, and please take advantage of it.
Thank you so much. And a quick note to our military veteran and spouse viewers. We'd like to know what kind of resources you'd like to land that job outside of the military. You can email us at video@mco.com or leave a comment under this video if you're watching it on YouTube. You can also always tweet at me at Wolfolk12. And now for Defense Dollars. Welcome to Defense Dollars. The Army announced who's getting the first set of Stryker combat vehicles equipped with a 50 kilowatt laser weapon. Soldiers at Fort Sill, Oklahoma will have the Maneuver Short Range Air Defense System, which they call the Guardian. The service tested its first prototype early last year at White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico, against several threats, including rockets, artilleries, and mortar. The service plans to conduct more tests this month. And an interesting bit is that the Army got extensive feedback from soldiers who tested the system, of all ways, through virtual simulation. I'd like to see that work from home setup. Leonardo won a $296 million contract in Eurofighter radar work from Germany's Hensoldt. That means the Italian firm now has a major role in all three of the new E-scan radars being built for Typhoon customers. The deal to work on radar upgrades for Spanish and German aircraft follows the closure of a $691 million deal earlier this month, which handed Leonardo a 25% stake in Hensoldt. The firm says the move will achieve leadership in Europe's defense electronics market. The new contracts from Hensoldt cover work on the European Common Radar System Mark I E-scan radar ordered by Germany and Spain to retrofit roughly 130 Eurofighters in the mid-2020s. A team in the running for the Army's future long-range assault aircraft competition recently completed tests that show how it handles low-altitude flights as well as landing in confined areas. A Lockheed Martin Sikorsky Boeing team announced that its SB-1 Defiant completed tests as part of the Army's Future Vertical Lift program. The company says that the Defiant X weapon system is designed to fit in the same footprint as a Black Hawk, and that the Army will be able to deliver troops and cargo at twice the range as the current fleet. The team added some accomplishments that include high-angle turns and a test where it picked up a 5,300-pound rocket system. The Lockheed Martin Sikorsky Boring team is competing against Bell, and the Army plans to pick a winner later this year. And around the world, Russia and Belarus plan to hold massive military drills next month in Belarus. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko announced the news at a meeting with military officials on Monday. So what will they be working on? Well, according to Lukashenko, they will be working on a specific plan to counter forces from the west and south of Belarus. Belta, the state-owned news agency of Belarus, reported that Russian troops already started arriving. This is significant because Belarus shares a border with Ukraine, and Ukrainian officials have warned that Russia may attack from various directions, including from Belarus. And of course, Russia has denied having plans to attack Ukraine. When we come back, see how the Pentagon is using gaming technology to train for upcoming battles, and this goes well beyond using Xbox controllers. That's after the break, so stay with us. The military and defense market is constantly evolving. Stay on top of the latest news with Sightline Media Group's live events. Continue to learn, understand new tools and technologies. We're live. You're on in 3. Defense, government, and industry leaders come together for successful and proven engaging events. You'll gain valuable insight, get the chance to ask questions, all from the comfort of your own home or office. Sign up for our events newsletters and receive alerts for upcoming live streams.
Welcome back. Our military viewers know how much it takes to get out in the field for training. So the Pentagon is working to prepare for battle using gaming technology. That's what's up in this week's MilTech with Todd South.
So let's talk gaming. I don't mean video gaming like Fortnite, Call of Duty, but I guess kinda. Also a little bit of chess, maybe Go strategy. Really wargaming. So essentially, pretty much all the branches have doubled down on simulations and synthetic training environments. And for the layman, that's kind of a lot like gaming, but not exactly. So a lot of the wargaming systems that they're using now have a combination of factors. So they'll use actual kind of like role-playing, first-person, move through the terrain type of features, such as virtual battle space 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being the most recent version. The Marines have just adopted that. The Army's still on version 3, but I think they're upgrading. Those are pretty much what you would see in the role player type, first-person shooter type games. However, you have a lot more options with technology. Those are out there now. They're being developed and have been used for decades now in the military. Getting better each year, getting better each time. They do different upgrades for software, different upgrades for capabilities and additions. So the last few years, the Army put together its cross-functional team synthetic training environment. Now, that's a whole different focus beyond the typical programs that develop equipment or software or programs. It's a whole team dedicated to figuring out how they're going to train people, whether it's driving a Humvee, shooting a new weapon system, or figuring out how to do a tactical type of or operational strategic type of war game. And that team is basically adapting all those technologies to live virtual constructed events, which means you have elements of the team out there actually in the field, with gear, with sensors, shooting at each other with blanks, practicing actual maneuvers, while in a battle space, say a command post or some type of C2 operation, they're actually viewing the entire battle space, simulating effects as far as, say, drones, electronic warfare, cyber attacks, weather issues such as dust storms. Those are all being simulated through those centers, and then they're getting feedback from what's happening out in the field, and it's the live and virtual and constructed, so it's all kind of built together. Now that's what the STE team is going after on the Army side. Now on the Marine Corps side, about 4 years ago, the Commandant at the time announced a Wargaming and Analysis Center at the Marine Corps headquarters at Quantico, Virginia. That broke ground this past year and is scheduled to open in the next couple years. They've just signed on to get software developed for that Wargaming Center. And the same company that makes the virtual battle space that's been used for a couple decades, Bohemia Interactive Solutions, is developing software for the Wargaming Center. And it's pretty much going to digest all the known data, all the intel about China, about Russia, about Iran, and develop opposing or adversary forces that they can then run thousands upon thousands of algorithms through to see what the Marine Corps needs to fight those types of fights, like what equipment will work best, what kind of ranges they can fight at, what communication systems they're going to have in those spaces that might be vulnerable and what they can do to protect them. It pretty much takes all those things and jams them into one program so that they can figure out what best to do in the next fight, how to build and prepare the force in the coming years to better fight that potential or anticipated fight. Military Times recently spoke with Bohemia Interactive Solutions. They're the ones that make VBS and are working on the Wargaming Center and programs for the Army. And they talked about the level of detail that they've had to develop and have been able to expand upon since they came out with their first version almost 2 decades ago. Essentially, they can get down to the level of detail where they can figure out how the tires on a Humvee will react to a certain type of sand in, say, a central command type battle space scenario. So you know, well, is this sand issue or these other types of maybe a weather issue such as a dust storm or a rainstorm going to affect my movement from one location to the next? At the same time, some detail is kind of superfluous. Like, they don't need to study all the physics of how water moves around to make a wake for a ship just so that you see a beautiful wake for a ship on the video game. But they do need to do things like understand how smoke's going to come out of an artillery tube so that artillerymen using that specific software will know how the wind is drifting, how the wind might affect their fire, and adjust fire in the game as though they would really do that on a firing line or on a gun line in the real world. Kind of the backbone to all of these simulations that really the STEE team on the Army side and all the other programs that are using these simulations are looking towards and looking forward to is the development of a thing called One World Terrain. Now, for the longest time, they pretty much had to build from scratch the terrain features that they wanted, whether it was an urban environment, a desert or a jungle, something out to sea. Now what they're doing is taking and mapping entire areas of the globe via satellite, via drones, pulling all that data in and creating real-world, almost real-time mapping in the games. Think of a Google Earth, but even more accurate, and also including sensitive information that you couldn't get in an unclassified situation. By taking that together, putting that software into one system, everyone can be on the same common operating picture, working on the same terrain, and the terrain can be adjusted. So if I'm shooting at enemy forces and some of my rounds miss and create craters in the ground, and the next force comes through that, the craters are there on the virtual version of the real world scenario, so you're dealing with actual battle damage effects and battle damage assessments that you would see if you were doing an actual fire in the real world. So for old guys like me, probably not going to see a lot anymore of the cigarette carton, cigarette pack, or MRE boxes on a sand table making up a kind of an ad hoc terrain map for your next assault on an urban objective. Now you're going to have devices such as tablets that are going to give you those, maybe virtuality goggles that they're developing so you can see around the terrain and see what the simulated portions and augmented reality or virtual portions would be that you're communicating with the command post about. You can still see the effects, you can still have the communication, you can still have the objective there in front of you and be able to use the technology at hand to better improve the training and tactical proficiency. And just a few years ago, Military Times reported on Marines down at Camp Lejeune that kind of cobbled together their own way of doing virtual training in the barracks. They basically got some salvaged computers to put together with some software, took their drones out, scanned some areas, pulled that data in, created their own training environment, and then used that to run different scenarios for fire team and squad level rushes and attacks. So they were able to basically do their own kind of virtual sand table right there in the barracks. And it's kind of a wonder what Marines can do if you give them too much time. And while live training is probably the ultimate, the best way to do any kind of training, actually get your hands on equipment, get out in the field, see how things move, there are things you can't do in live training. Like here in the continental United States, you really can't do a lot of electronic warfare attacks. It's hard to do certain types of cyber attacks. But with virtual and constructed areas available, basically trainers can take those kind of simulated effects and apply them and put them into a war game. So you're out there and suddenly your comms go down, or you're being jammed, or you're having degraded communications, or a cyber attack takes out all your links and you have to operate alone in the dark with no communications. Those types of situations are harder to do in a field training environment now, but with augmented, virtual, and different type of live and constructed scenarios, they can be added into training for a more realistic effect for what Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen might face down range in the field. And for Military Times on Defense News Weekly, this is Todd South.
Thanks, Todd. I guess all of that Call of Duty is finally paying off. And now a look at what's happening in your military. This past week saw 2 more military leaders test positive for COVID-19. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, and Marine Corps Commandant General David Berger both tested positive in the past week. Spokespeople say both are continuing to work from remote locations. The 2 are just the most recent military leaders to test positive amid rising numbers. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin tested positive on January 2nd. And in other news, the military's anti-extremism policy might not apply to about 1 million reservists. The Pentagon is hoping that updated extremism rules will help commanders weed out racist and anti-government behavior. But there may be a hitch. The National Guard contends the rules only apply when troops are on federal orders and under command of the president. Prompted by, quote, ongoing litigation, a 2021 memo from the National Guard to all 54 states and territories said that the Defense Department's instruction does not apply unless troops are in a Title X status. But the Pentagon still contends it has recourse, saying, quote, if you read the instruction, it very clearly relates to all uniformed personnel. When we return, we get the latest tips from personal finance expert Jeanette Mack, who will explain the best time to increase your credit limit. When we return, we get the latest tips from personal finance expert Jeanette Mack, who will explain the best time to increase your credit limit.
If you have a credit card, at some point you may be asked by your issuer if you'd like to increase your spending limit. Or maybe you've even thought about asking for one yourself. Knowing if and when it's right for you really comes down to your lifestyle and spending habits. Ask yourself some probing questions. Why do you want the increase? Is having a higher limit going to tempt you to charge more? It's never a good idea to bring your balance too close to your limit or go over. And you want to make sure you can always afford at least the minimum payment. So when does it make sense to increase your limit? If you're looking to boost your credit score, putting a big gap between your credit balance and your available credit can do the trick. It can also be used as an emergency resource for the inevitable rainy day. But the same rule applies. Don't borrow more than you can safely repay. So yes, there are perks to increasing your credit limit. Just be real with yourself and use your credit wisely. Ask for more credit when you absolutely need it, or when you can reap the rewards of well-managed debt.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll check back in with you next week. In the meantime, if you want more in-depth military and defense coverage, check out our headlines online at Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps Times.com and DefenseNews.com. Did you know that in 1969, military leaders started getting print aggregations of the news? The early bird was made on a crank copier and was hand-delivered. A big part of its existence is owed to retired Air Force Major Melvin Bowling, who died this month at the age of 88. The early bird fell victim to budget cuts in 2013, but it lives on online at Military Times as the Early Bird Brief. And you don't have to be a general to get it. We'll deliver it to you, but not by hand, sorry. You have to sign up on our site to get it in your email inbox. While you're at it, why not give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube? We're also looking to hear the funniest bit of advice you got on a Friday night safety briefing. Leave us a voicemail at 540-753-0567 and give us your best one. You just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Tuskegee Airman Charles McGee, a retired brigadier general who flew combat missions in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, died on Sunday. The pilot flew 409 combat missions over his career. He was 102 years old. Military Times spoke to McGee in 2017. Here is some of his story in his own words.
Sometimes segregation made it possible because in the late 50s, after during the Korean time frame, and I kind of felt like I wanted to get out of military flying. Well, commercial aviation wasn't open to blacks or women, so I stayed in. But it turned out, without my really trying, couldn't have written a script for better opportunities of serving. So I ended up also after the Korean time frame serving in Vietnam and remaining in the service for 30 years. So it's good to be able to share the experience, and I enjoy kind of helping motivate our young people, because I look at it, this is a value experience that sustained us are still good for the young folks today, and maybe even more so, because the one I think of most important is persevering. And that is, don't let circumstance be an excuse for not achieving. We could have gone off in the corner with our heads bowed, but what would it have done for not only ourselves or families, but what would it have done for the country?
McGee and the Tuskegee Airmen have left us with an amazing legacy. And that's all we have time for this week. Please visit us online at militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more coverage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.